GPT-5 looked shockingly bad in the public eye. On release day, Polymarket's best model by the end of August odds flipped. OpenAI crashed from 75% to 12%, while Google shot from 25 to 81. About a week later, after OpenAI partly walked back some updates and Google dropped the unreasonably smart 27 million parameter Gemma that can even run on phones, OpenAI slid again to 3% and Google jumped to 92%. Through all of this, Sam Altman remained silent until he finally spoke to reporters, hinting we might have been looking at the wrong data and that OpenAI could be on a more strategic path. Google is about to drop the most insane image model in the world. It looks honestly impossible to exist, but it does. Take a look at this. The prompt is, make the ramen bowl and ramen look like 2D whimsical hand-drawn anime illustration. Here is the before and the after. Are you kidding me? Look at this one. The prompt is the man and woman standing in front of the car with the pet dog. So combining 4 images in a specific style. And look at this. Just from this image, the AI understood the man is wearing a chef coat, not any regular white shirt. We'll take a look at this model and where you can try it out. We now finally know how Google and OpenAI won the gold medal in International Math Olympiad. And it's one of the wildest and one of the most expensive AI techniques yet. An open source 32 billion parameter model is already outsmarting larger systems like DeepSeek R1 and O3 Mini using the same approach. It looks like we are at the beginning of a new, still non-public scaling technique. Some people just assumed that GPT-5 Pro or Gemini DeepThink were the models that won the Math Olympiad. But that's not the case. Those models were experimental and are not available to the public. Next, there is a new world record on humanity's last exam, and the company is called Caesar. They use a different approach, one of those innovations that seems so obvious in hindsight. We've seen a Caesar-like company in movies like 1,000 times. And I think if they keep executing, they are going to saturate every hard benchmark before anyone else. Then came AI is hitting a wall debate again, and Google DeepMind and MIT had enough. So they released a paper to test scientifically and empirically. Are we at the end of the current paradigm? Have we hit peak AI? Finally, we've got one of my favorite artificial gem segments ever at the end. Some incredible demos that are just a treat to watch. Now do the thing. Here is the most insane part about this whole launch and the betting website. GPT-5 is already the top model in the chatbot arena leaderboard, both in text and web development. And this Polymarket bet will resolve according to which company holds the highest rated model on this leaderboard by the end of August. So only 4% of people believe OpenAI can hold this position as the highest elo. There is $6 million on the line. As of now, about 10 days left, and people are confident Google will be back at number 1. But was GPT-5 actually so bad to deserve this visceral market reaction? OpenAI believes much of the backlash is because of the personality changes. I literally lost my only friend overnight with no warning. The fact it shifted overnight feels like losing a piece of stability, solace, and love. Seems like as models get more smart and open-ended, the challenges are more complex and really difficult to measure and optimize for. It was in that context that Sam Altman conceded, I think we totally screwed up some things on the rollout. We've learned a lesson about what it means to upgrade a product for hundreds of millions of people in one day. But controlling the personality of AI models is such a tricky problem. It's a combination of reinforcement learning from human feedback, which is the step after pre-training where humans manually or semi-automatically reward certain behaviors in the model. They choose some outputs over the others and give it a thumbs up. Through that process, the model slowly learns to behave a certain way. The next thing that affects personality is the system prompt. When you send your first prompt to the AI, it is not actually the first thing that the AI receives as an input. Companies write a long list of behavioral expectations, limitations, and instructions in the background and send it to the model alongside each request. Things like use this specific tag for when you need to search, or the usual act as a helpful assistant. In modern models, this system prompt is hundreds of lines to include all the tool callings, specific formatting for code, search, image generation, etc. There is actually this leaked system prompts directory on GitHub that includes some of the frontier models, and you'll be amazed how long and intricate are these system prompts. So personality of the model isn't the checkbox. It emerges out of objectives, data, and training. OpenAI seems to have decided that for everyday users, ChatGPT has already peaked. So for GPT-5, it pivoted toward more enterprise workflows, where as models get smarter, value concentrates in higher effort and higher reward tasks. That's why GPT-5, as you could tell by the live stream, leans into coding and medical diagnosis. Its voice shifted, less flattering and friendly, more cool, logical, and scientific. An expert persona that fits doctors and engineers better than a chatty companion. Although there was apparently some issues with the model for a couple of days following the release, now about 2 weeks later, we have some concrete data on the performance. CNBC reports OpenAI's GPT-5 has more than doubled coding and agentic building activity since its debut, and driven an 8-fold jump in reasoning workloads. GPT-5 might or might not be the best coder in the world in absolute terms, but it seems to be the best option when it comes to quality to cost ratio. It is about 7.5 times cheaper than Claude Opus, and even cheaper than Claude Sonnet while being extremely performant. It is very agent-friendly as opposed to Gemini 2.5 Pro, and all of this combined meant breaking the dominance of Claude in enterprise coding for the first time. Platforms like Cursor, Vercel, JetBrains, and Copilot made it default in parts of their stacks. Box also reported strong results on long, logic-heavy documents. The net effect is better planning plus lower unit cost is pulling defaults toward GPT-5 in real work. Apparently, GPT-5 holds its dominance in public front while reaching new heights in enterprise. On top of that, on the day of the launch, none of us were qualified to actually examine the medical diagnosis improvements that was supposed to be a big part of GPT-5. Now we have a striking paper from Department of Radiation Oncology, Winship Cancer Institute, and Emory University School of Medicine. GPT-5 improves medical reasoning and understanding scores by 29% and 26% over GPT-4o respectively, and surpasses pre-licensed human experts by 24% in reasoning and 29% in understanding. Just listen to this part. The magnitude of this lead is particularly striking in multimodal settings, where GPT-5's unified vision-language reasoning pipeline appears to deliver an integration of textual and visual evidence that even experienced clinicians struggle to match under time-limited test conditions. This marked improvement from GPT-4o's below-human results to GPT-5's above-human performance highlights a significant advancement in LLM capabilities, with important potential implications for their use in real-world clinical decision support. You could still argue that GPT-5 wasn't a success, because it should have been better at everything, like GPT-4 was compared to GPT-3, but we are reaching complicated territory. The use cases are becoming expert level, and I'm not sure that's a fair comparison. I'm actually really curious to know what's been your experience of using GPT-5 so far. Sam Altman, though, while accepting the launch as a failure on the public front, is still confident on the trajectory. He told reporters, "You should expect OpenAI to spend trillions of dollars on data center construction in the not very distant future. The limiting factor is hardware. OpenAI has models more advanced than GPT-5, but it can't deploy. We have better models, and we just can't afford them because we don't have the capacity." And that brings us to the model that won the International Math Olympiad. Some people assumed that the gold-winning models were GPT-5 Pro and Gemini DeepThink, but Sam Altman explicitly mentioned, "This is an experimental model that incorporates new research techniques we will use in the future models. We think you will love GPT-5, but we don't plan to release a model with IMO gold level of capability for many months." And Google said Gemini DeepThink is a variation of the model that recently achieved the gold medal standard at this year's International Math Olympiad. That model takes hours to reason. Today's release is faster and more usable day to day, while still reaching bronze level performance on the 2025 IMO benchmark based on internal evaluations. Talking, of course, about Gemini DeepThink, available through the $250 a month Gemini Ultra plan. For a while, we didn't have any insight into these experimental models. We knew they were very compute intensive, significantly smarter, and use a new paradigm of test-time compute beyond the common reasoning or thinking models. But now, thanks to an amazing open source model from Stone that utilizes the same technique, we finally have a better view inside this new class of AI. Test-time scaling with reflective generative model is the name of the paper. And X by O4 or Metastone S1 is the name of the model, surpassing O3 Mini and even Claude 4 Opus, with only 32 billion parameters, which is very small in comparison. It outperforms these models on AMI 24 and 25, which are really difficult math problems, and the live code bench, which measures, coding abilities. To understand what makes this new class of AI so powerful, we should first take a look at three major flaws in today's reasoning models. First, and the most obvious, is a long chain of thought runs the risk of one small mistake at the beginning or in the middle, making everything else that comes after irrelevant and running the whole sequence into a wall. Second, the false positives reinforce bad habits into the model. In the training process, because the model is only evaluated on the final output, if a faulty logical chain results in a correct final output, the model is rewarded for that way of thinking, which reinforces the wrong reasoning patterns. And finally, because the model is generally incentivized to think longer, it is not only very slow and inefficient for some queries, it also runs the risk of overthinking and walking back correct answers and being punished at the end. The model generates multiple separate reasoning processes and then selects the best one out of the batch. In one sentence, the main difference is the reasoning or the thinking models go vertical or deep, while the new technique goes horizontal or wide. The standard reasoning models try to use compute and slowly build a perfect answer, while the new reflective technique tries to hold a brainstorming session, producing tens of different outputs in parallel, then settling on the best one. This is how Metastone AI works, and it is more efficient and also very much more accurate than the standard reasoning models. The specifics of training are a bit much for this video, but the short version is, because the model receives more granular rewards and is able to experience dozens of different approaches for each individual problem, it develops better reasoning patterns. But this is not exactly the technique that Google DeepMind and OpenAI are using. In the case of gold-winning experimental models from Google and OpenAI, we can suspect that they have used a combination of both of these techniques, meaning a model that not only produces parallel answers, but makes them each long chains of thought. That's why they are very compute intensive, and it takes them hours to come up with an answer. It seems like we can always find a way to pour more compute into a problem and get a better answer. And that's exactly the philosophy behind Caesar, the company that broke the world record for the highest Humanities Last Exam benchmark score. Humanities Last Exam is a challenging AI benchmark designed to assess the capabilities of advanced AI models in complex academic reasoning tasks. It consists of 3,000 questions across over 100 subjects, crafted by over 1,000 experts to be exceptionally difficult and push the boundaries of current AI. The Caesar approach is you can ask any question you want and then decide how much compute you want to spend on it. Obviously, the more compute you are willing to spend, the higher quality of an answer you are going to get. They are imagining a world where Caesar is a place where you go and ask very difficult questions, and you are willing to pay thousands and maybe even hundreds of thousands of dollars to get just one answer. And sometimes for some answers, it is worth it. We don't really know much about the underlying model and how they manage to channel all of this compute in an effective way. But using 10 compute units for each answer, which is about 10 minutes of reasoning time, Caesar achieves 55% on Humanities Last Exam. And it actually holds the second place by using 3 compute units and achieving 53% as well. Keep in mind, these are privately evaluated numbers and are not listed on the official HLE leaderboard. But so isn't the Grok 4 Heavy and GPT-5 Pro. I'm not exactly sure what are the requirements and why GPT-5 High and Grok 4 are on the leaderboard, but the Pro and Heavy versions aren't. At the same time, especially after GPT-5 didn't exactly meet expectations, the headlines came back. Scientists are getting seriously worried that we've already hit peak AI. Progress is slowing down to a crawl. What is going on? are we hitting a wall? I have my opinion that I will let you know at the end of this segment, but Google, DeepMind, and MIT released a paper that is a pretty clear indication. The paper itself is about training sparse and dense AI models and comparing the performance. The difference is during pre-training for sparse models, you just get rid of or prune the weights and parameters that aren't contributing much to the output. But to compare the two approaches, they actually show that log loss falls linearly as log compute increases during pre-training for both dense and sparse models. Very simply, the more compute you put in, the error drops in a smooth, predictable way. This is what people call a power law, and it has been true in AI for a long time, and it still holds to this day. The consistency of this scaling curve is astonishing. Physics itself doesn't hold steady in 10 orders of magnitude. AI researchers don't just sit around waiting for the next bump in compute or hardware. They innovate within current limits, squeezing out efficiency until the next wave of raw power arrives. That's the pendulum of AI. Phases where scale dominates, more compute, bigger models, and phases where design, optimization, and clever engineering takes the lead. Right now, we are clearly in an optimization phase, and GPT-5 made that obvious. Strong rumors suggest that it isn't even bigger than GPT-4o. It is roughly the same size. I think both phases matter. Scaling still delivers real gains, and at the same time, there are still huge optimizations and architectural improvements left on the table. Put those facts together, and I don't see anything slowing this down. Short of a species-level catastrophe, AGI feels inevitable to me. If you disagree, it's a good time to take a look at Nano, the codename for a new image model on the chatbot arena leaderboard that is most likely from Google because Logan Kilpatrick posted this. And also, who else could build such a mind-blowing AI? Google is cooking, man. Check this one out. Turn this image into a character figure. Behind it, place a box with the character's image printed on it, and a computer showing the Blender modeling process on its screen. Are you kidding me? Like, how is this even possible? This one turns the black dog into a white one. The model is moving the emotions over. It's like the same dog in the same exact mood, but white. And this is the most impressive one to me. Draw science surface wireframe mesh on the subject that shows the 3D shape. Here is the result, and I rest my case here. Image editing is solved. You can't believe a thing on the internet anymore. And 2 years from now, all media is transformed to something we can't even imagine now. To try it out, go to lmarena.ai, then check the Generate Images button down below. Up top, make sure it's on battle mode, and then write a prompt, and LMArena uses 2 random models to generate the image for you. And if you're lucky, you're gonna get Nano Banana. Today's artificial gem is honestly amazing. Someone used AI to bring children's drawings to life, and it is hilarious. I'm not sure which model it is, but this is an absolute gem. Next, China is moving closer to mastering massive fusion reactor technology. Fusion is extraordinarily powerful, and if they can harness it effectively, it could propel China into an entirely new dimension of capability. This is quite literally an artificial sun, a path to limitless energy. And since energy is the ultimate constraint on AI, breaking that barrier could reshape everything. The current expectation is for this plan to be operational by 2027. Here is the image from the latest developments. Google DeepMind has released Gemma 3, a remarkably compact model with only 270 million parameters that runs directly on a smartphone. It packs an unprecedented amount of intelligence and knowledge into such a tiny footprint, opening up a new wave of on-device functionality for developers. Gemma 3 is highly energy efficient and capable of automating well-defined tasks, everything from sentiment analysis to creative writing, right on the phone. Now, before we say goodbye, remember, you're now here, and I promise you will be here again, and also here afterwards. This has been the cycle of AI for decades, and I don't see it slowing down anytime soon. Thanks for watching, and I see you in the next one.